Hey, today we're talking about marketing in cybersecurity. We've all been to the vendor conferences and gotten all the free stuff, heard the scary messages. We've got a great guest on this week to talk about why companies are doing that, and we talk to him about if it even works. I think you'll really enjoy. Stay with us. All right, we got Casey Barnett with us today. Casey is the Senior Marketing Manager at MindPoint Group. Casey, welcome. Thanks for being here. Anything you want to say about yourself?
Thanks. No, appreciate you inviting me onto the podcast. Good to be here. I know that. I'm somewhat new to cybersecurity, but very old in the marketing world. I think is where it falls. So this will be a fun conversation of having learning the industry while still trying to apply the things I've learned while being at marketing agencies and some other areas throughout my career. So I think it's going to be a fun conversation today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have this sense the last time that we met out in Raleigh, I came away thinking this guy is like some sort of marketing maestro. Because I had this really strongly held opinion about soccer and why I don't watch a lot of soccer. And like three or four sentences, you were able to like get me to do a 180 on my opinion. And I was thinking like if that's not good marketing, then I don't know what it is. So
The messaging
yeah.
matters and the how you do it matters, right? So one, you had to be open to it. You had to be at a place that you'd be willing to listen. And two, like the message had to be strong to get there. And also it helps that I wasn't on the sales team. So I wasn't trying to sell you on anything. If you didn't take it, you didn't take it. If you did, you like, if you did take it, then I know a guy that can sell you some soccer tickets. No problem.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting. So you're not on the sales team. I feel like a lot of people associate marketing and sales as kind of like two sides of the same coin, but obviously you see that differently.
Cohorts. They're cohorts. They work together. I think that there's a they should be working together. Your marketing team should be enabling your sales team, and it's a I think you can get into a challenging place when you think of marketing ends when a lead comes in, and it's not that's not true. If you're using a sales deck, if you're using a document that you're handing off to a customer or off to a lead or even just a prospect, right? Knowing the difference between a prospect and a lead and a hot lead and a customer success and a customer marketing, like these are all like phases within there, but there's also this whole side that marketing usually gets equated to, like the social, the demand gen, the things you're doing to say, are you even interested in what we're doing? Marketing usually gets attributed those. And then as soon as it comes in, sometimes teams will stop marketing and they'll start selling, not realizing that a lot of customers are not ready to be sold yet. They still need information. They still need to understand who they're getting in bed with, right? When they start working with organizations. It's a different feeling when it's a service company versus a product company with a product that you can buy and you can and is like a one-off. You're just buying the product. Amazon, right? Like, do I care about the company that created a trinket that I bought? No. Like I do, but I don't. Like I might go really deep into it, but if I had a subscription for them, I'm going to need to know who the company is, where they're going. Like, do I want to be here? Are they going to be here for as long as I need them? And now I need more information. And so your marketing team is really like helping to back up what the sales team is saying. Sales team will tell you all day long, yeah, we're always going to be here. We're always going to do these things. And the marketing team will be like, and here's proof in visuals of what it was, because I want you to feel good and I want you to be able to pass that on to your CEO or pass that on to your partner or pass that on to your team that this is the right way to go.
That's fascinating. I'm really not sure that I ever thought of marketing in that way. It's almost like some of the things that you're talking about are getting into what I would attribute to like customer success. Like, how do we make sure that the customer, sees the value of our company and sees the value of like the services that you're providing and is enabled to be successful. I have a very engineering background and I write a lot of like very dry documentation that I'm sure nobody ever reads. And now I'm thinking, like, what kind of like how would we have brought marketing into telling that story, even though it's not like you know like obviously we want everybody to buy things, right? And so we're very focused on like how do we get a buy decision. And now I'm feeling like that is only like a very small part of the journey.
But it is part of the journey. So it's okay. Like, yes,
Yeah.
it is a piece of the journey. It's, um, there's, there's multiple phases within what marketing is. But if you think about where it depends on where your company is too. If your company is new, then everything to you is new and every customer is new. Right. But once you get down the route of a Microsoft, why do you keep buying from Microsoft? Like, is it because the product is the only product that does the thing it does? No. Is it because you like what they're doing within the development that's happening? That's still marketing. Like, that's still growing the products. You could stop investing in the products and stop engineering things and it would just die off. And we've seen products that do that. There's within the marketing of just about every service or product, or even the sales pitch, or even things that go through, there's a tinge of brand awareness. There's a tinge of marketing that's happening. There is a, how do we keep people top of mind? An example that I love, you were talking about technical documentation, right? When I try to make a brand sticky, like taking those technical documents and trying to make them also fun for people, that it now makes you known for a thing that wasn't there. One company that's done this really well is actually Webflow. So I didn't really understand Webflow until I got to this organization, and it is what our website is built on today. In 2022, it's great. It does all the things we need to do, but I am also the web developer for us. And so when I'm doing web development, I'm like, I need to get into the technical videos and documentation. And it is the snarkiest videos, and they are so fun to watch while still learning the thing. Right. And they do cutaways and takeaways that are just like breaking the third wall, breaking the fourth wall, like talking to people in the room and then talking to me through about people in the, like, this is not things that you should be doing in technical videos to show me how to change out the animations on a page. But because of it, I'm now talking to you about it and you're going, gosh, I wonder if I should look at Webflow. That's marketing.
Yeah, that's interesting. But it's interesting in terms of like who the audience is. So this is not an advertisement for Webflow, unless they want to write us a check and then we can retroactively dub that in. We also use Webflow, and I've been in and out of their documentation, and my experience has been that the documentation is very concise in that it's like this. Like I can look at it and be like, okay, I get it, as opposed to Microsoft documentation where I'm reading somebody's dissertation on what I need to do, and then buried deep in is like the one setting I was supposed to change. So for me, it's very effective, but it's interesting because it's effective in a different way. For you, It like seems like it brought you in, and it's like got you like, I don't know, like interested, but like in enjoying something that you might not enjoy. And for me, who's always been very technical, I want to just get to the point. And so there's no world in which I'm clicking on any of those videos, because if, it's going to take so much longer to describe something to me via video, as opposed to being like, just go do this one thing. Like I have a high basis of background. Just tell me the one thing I need to do and I'll move on. And that's so curious, because I guess it's working on like multiple levels, and maybe that's the trick, right? Is like,
well, that's the sign of a good product too, is like product or service offering, is that you understand your audiences, you understand who might be using it, who might be utilizing these elements. And Webflow is one of those ones that they say within their product that they are good for a new user, but like makes it hyper accessible to those who know CSS, who know HTML, who want to get in and do JavaScript and do a lot of intricate things. They're able to do all that. Come from a WordPress background, I could do all of that in WordPress. It was really a lot simpler than what I could do in Webflow, mostly because I just knew it a different way. But I also knew it only as code, where they visualized it. They've made it more accessible in a different way to more people. Whichever one you like to use is right or wrong. It's up to you. But I also have other developer friends that are like, I only want to build in Dreamweaver. I'm going to do everything on my own. It sits on my own server. I am just that person. That's how it's going to always be forever. And I'm like, cool. Like, you are limited in what you are able to do within that system. And but if that's okay with you, like that's the business decision or the personal decision you've made there, and that's okay. We get to live with it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to talk to you about how that translates into the physical world. Now that conferences and in-person events have come like roaring back. We actually met at Triangle InfoSec Con briefly.
Yeah.
My company had a booth, and you came by, and then we've had some other occasions to meet as well. But if you've been in cyber, and you can tell us how true this is in other areas, but if you've been in cyber, and you have attended any cyber conference, you'll be familiar with the like vendor show space, and it's just full of, bright colors and free giveaways, like the swag. There's definitely people walking the floor like with a bag, just collecting every item that they can collect. And I noticed, most specifically at RSA this year, the amount of money or the quality of the giveaways has just gone through the roof. And I'm curious, from your perspective, like how do you see like investment in like conference giveaways? Like what are organizations trying to achieve, and does it even work?
Really good questions. So, and we just attended, as an organization, we are just at Ansible Fest, showing off like our Ansible Counselor products and Lockdown Enterprise products that are in that, baseline automation world. And so Ansible Fest is a perfect example of a place we need to be in the room to show off our product and to show how our team is capable. And when we decided on what items we were sending, the biggest things that I keep in mind are either what make us sticky in your brain, like who our brand is, what our brand is, why our brand is doing it, what it makes us sticky beyond the event. And within what makes us sticky, that's different for some people than others, but also how can we get not just the quantity of leads to fill out the forms and do the things, but to actually get truly good follow through leads in the now and the maybe someday bucket. I always look at I'm going to go off tangent for just a second. I always look at our audiences in three ways. One is like, we have the buy nows, the people that are going to buy, they're ready to buy, they're in that space, but that's like, you're getting into the sales team, they're almost done. And it's this little tiny bit way over here, what you're doing. The biggest bucket you have is the maybe some days, right? Like they're not a no, but they're like, maybe someday. And some are way over here and some are pretty close to the buy now, and those different groups need different information for it to be sticky. So they remember your product, remember what you do, remember where you go. And then there's the, I just don't care. And I think a lot of times especially at conferences, we get a lot of I just don't cares that scan their ID to get entered into the thing to do the thing, right? And being aware that you're getting those is really important. Knowing that, especially now that it's been made so much easier conferences just to scan an ID to get information, versus like some people are doing, like I know at InfoSecCon we had a bunch of people doing like Yeti coolers where you drop in your business card or you drop in information and you're entered for a Yeti cooler, and then they end up with all these business cards that they get to follow up on. But like, was I really interested, or did I just want a Yeti cooler? That's a different place, and it depends on what your product is and what your service is. As far as people spending money on what they spend money on, it's all about being sticky. Like, can you keep it in someone's mind to do this? Like, we gave away at InfoSecCon, we gave away like 10 YubiKeys is what we did to get scans as we went through. And then we just used a randomizer to pull it in. And we decided it was better for us to spend money on YubiKeys that are a security feature that will be sticky for those people, that will come through and be something that was there. They're not going to throw it away and it's not going to go away. That's why you would do a Yeti cooler. That's why you would do a drone. That's why you would do something along those lines. In my mind, what I don't want to have is a bunch of stuff that ends up in like a child's playpen or in the dog's mouth, unless you want to do dogs equipment and you want to be sticky that way. Like, there are reasons to do that because it fits your brand, but pick the items that really fit within your brand and fit within where you're at. I think I don't have it on my desk at the moment, but like one of the things that fits within our brand, we did do fidget spinners because half the time our team is sitting there saying like, we're waiting for the SOC to come through with the log files that are coming through to watch for threat detectors. And it's like, we want to stay present, but we're kind of fidgety because we're developers and we're sitting there at night. But on top of that, I went and got a fidget spinner that has bottle openers on it because, we still want a beer after work too. So why not? Like we made it also things
That's
that we
so
would
cool.
want to have, right? But there's also things like just like notepads that have brand on it. There's pens that you get, but you spend the right amount on pens. You don't just get the cheapest thing you can get. You get the things that stay sticky, that don't get thrown away. And if you do that, I do not want to put more things in landfills, but then I start to think about, okay, well, whatever I'm giving, I also want it to match for the person who's there what's actually going away. So even our cards that we don't do full page cards ever when we're at the conferences. We do half pagers because they fit in the bags that are there and they won't get folded up and they won't get put in half. And like, are they really going to look at everything that's there? But then I also think about the design that's on those, and I leave space so that our team can write things with a Sharpie or write things with a pen to be like, here's where we're going. This is where we're talking to. Circle this product. I give the things enough space to be like, we talked about this. So when you pull that piece of paper out of our documentation, or you're going through all the things you got, you can actually remember us and it's sticky of the conversation that we had.
There's so many like great nuggets of advice in that. I don't even know where to start. I guess maybe the question I would ask is, how do you get to a place where you understand the situation so well that you can then design kind of the right material and the right experience for the audience and for how your team is going to interact with them?
Experience. Like marketing is a profession for a reason. It is not just the courses you take in college because maybe I took them for that, right? You took the business classes because they were the easy classes. Then you found out that, oh my gosh, they're not as easy as you think because there's so much persona, so much evaluation, so much research that goes into understanding. And you're in a constant never-ending improvement, Toyota mindset, right? Of like, even though the messaging was good, could it have been better? Even though we did all these things, what's the way that why didn't we impact more people? Or why did we get so like, even from what we did at the Ansible Fest, like only 10% of the people who entered for that YubiKey were actually leads that we were able to follow up with, which 10% is still pretty good in the grand scheme of things, but we were pretty like determined on who we actually put on that list. And why didn't we meet the expectations of more people, or did we not have the opportunity? But we also have to remember, it's also about their journey, their space, where they're coming from. Are they the right person that gets to make that decision? Or do they influence the decision? Or is the decision beneath them even sometimes? Like sometimes it's like a CTO does not want to make a decision on what cords we're buying for our laptops. Like that's below them. That's not the right place. So knowing your audience is probably the most important thing that you can do. And the more you know about your audience, not assume. There are things that we do assume, but the more you know your audience, you'll understand better what you want to push out. That also comes down to knowing your company, knowing your mission, and living those things is super important as well. So the mission and vision statements that people have within their organizations, they think it's marketing and all of that. But if it's something you can lean back to, and we go, we want to be, our company comes from a highly diverse background. We want to be a company that is that is diverse and inclusive in all the things that we do. And within that, like, I want to make things super accessible to people and to the right people within the organizations that need the access to do the thing. So even our Ansible lockdown product that we support is open source, so that more people can have access to these baselines and these systems. And the only thing you would pay for with our company is the support. But we do marketing, we run the Twitter account, we do the things for it that cost us money, but we were trying to make things accessible because we think security should be accessible to everybody. And we're living that mission, we're living that vision when we go through and do that. So if you can do that, even within the products you buy, even within the personas you go after, My Point Group is, we're based in a federally focused area today, and we're branching out to work within the commercial space. But we know that our background is like, we can really help companies in the federal space that want to work with the federal government to do really, really well. Does that mean I want to sell like commercial products and commercial elements to in that space? That's not the right fit for us today. It might be in 5 years, but it's not today. So my messaging needs to be correct for the audience that I'm going after.
What I found so interesting about what you were just saying is, in a way, it felt very like inspirational, like it's something like I can buy into and get excited about. And a lot of times, my observation with cyber marketers is that they go the other way. There's this acronym FUD, which stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And that seems to be like the primary tool in the tool belt for lots of organizations who are trying to sell security products. I had an interesting experience that is not totally unique. But last week at a cyber conference, there were a lot of vendor talks, and several of them got on stage, said something to the effect of like, I don't want to stand up here and, give you FUD. Everybody hates FUD. I personally hate FUD. But, and then would like jump into this whole thing about, how terrible the world is, and, how we're all doomed unless you buy your product or service or something like that. And, we personally fall into it from time to time. I was preparing to ask you about this, and I looked at our website. We've got one of those like ticker things that goes across, and one of them is like, find threats hiding in the noise. And I was like, well, I guess the subtext there is like, oh my God, like, are there threats that I don't know about? And, part of me wants to say like, well, we shouldn't do this, right? We shouldn't transact on fear. But we're selling security products and services, and that's like the industry is based on protection, and you have protection because there are scary things that are out there. So I guess the question to you is, what do you see as the role of, using FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt? And is it a good strategy, and is it an ethical strategy?
Fear is a powerful thing. It brings about emotions for us that we as humans can't fully understand and yet try to, right? Like, we either fear our past or things that have happened to us before and we never want it to happen again. Like, as soon as your house gets broken into is the day you have enough money to replace all the locks on your house. You didn't have money for that last week, but all of a sudden you have it now because now you're afraid of what's coming, right? Or what could happen again. And you don't want that to happen to you again. I think a lot of times we go to FUD in our area within cybersecurity because for most people it hasn't happened. For most people, the problem hasn't actually manifested within their organization. And the only way we believe sometimes to make them aware that they're susceptible to a problem is to expose them to that problem beforehand. And we want to be preventative. We want to help them to find the things, even when we talk about zero trust, is the whole idea of like, we already are, like, you're already compromised. Like, within zero trust, you have to just realize you're already compromised, but how do you secure the things you need to secure as much as you possibly can? And we still want to talk about that, but there can still be a hopeful message within those of, this is how you get business done. This is how you move your business forward that isn't at a cost, but actually an investment. I think even in all of our documentation, we've replaced cost with investment. When you're doing security, you're talking about investment. As far as, is it ethical? I think that it is still always, not always ethical. It is ethical to keep people appraised of what could be a problem. It crosses the line when you go, you are always susceptible. You are always at risk. Your company is there. Every owner of every company gets to decide their level of exposure. right? Or their level of risk that they're willing to accept. And the more extreme a company goes to go after that, usually means that they're trying almost too hard when it goes that way. That they're saying, like, of course this is a problem. Of course you're going to have this happen to you. Of course. And it's, most owners are like, yeah, but like, I think we have a joke of like, the cybersecurity industry is $6 billion that it's going to cost everybody. Is like, our company is 59 million. It's not 6 billion or 66 billion. Like, what are we going to do with that? Right? Like, that number means nothing to me. My actual exposure is like 100 grand or 500 grand within that problem. And so catastrophizing it is actually not really effective when you go that far, because it's not really reaching the people who know, and the people who are probably investing in cyber, in security, in their networks, in their systems. They actually know the level of risk that they have, and they are smarter than you expect. So how can you treat your customers respectfully, and that they actually do know their needs? And if they don't, it's in your place to educate them so that they don't overbuy and they're upset with you because they overbought, or they got the wrong product, or they got the wrong system. All that does is make them leave next year. So you hit your money this year, but you didn't hit your money next year. How can you make sure that you are, one of the numbers that we love in marketing is net retention dollars. And like, we have this much is how much the customer spent this year. And we want them to expand how much they spend the next year. And we want to do that through customer marketing, which is marketing to a customer that's already a customer, because we want them to renew, or we want them to expand their account. And can we make that number positive versus negative? That's a great number to track, but that means that your customers are willing to reinvest in your organization year over year over year. And not just because you raised your price. Thank you, Apple, for raising your price this last week, right? But it's actually because like they want to invest in your product, your services, your people, your organization is why someone comes back. We also want to make our product sticky so that it's really hard. Once you buy, say, a SOC as a service like we have, it's going to be hard to leave that SOC as a service, because you have to give up the keys to somebody else, and then you also have to offboard the other one. So you want to make sure you're getting into the right relationship from the beginning. And if you're catastrophizing everything as in your marketing or in your other areas, but that's not really their exposure, they're going to see through it, and they're probably not going to come join you in the end. So keeping it, meet your customer where they're at, know who they are, and talk to them like they want to be talked to is the goal.
Yeah, it has me feeling better about it. I wasn't sure, honestly, not sure what direction you were going to go and be like, no, you can never scare somebody. But, the world is a scary place. I did a incident response panel a couple of weeks ago, and Trevor was there. And Trevor afterwards was like, I feel terrible now. Like, everything everybody talked about just seemed so horrible. I was like, well, it's not untrue, but it's true to a certain extent. One other thing, so just kind of, we've talked a lot about like reaching people and messaging to people. I'm curious what your perspective on, is it getting more or less difficult to reach people? And I guess kind of the background of the question, obviously, like, everybody went remote. We're all tired of talking about that. One of the things that we thought coming into starting our journey was, we've got these platforms like LinkedIn, and everybody, writes who they are and what they do. And I was like, great, like, we figure out people who might be interested in what we're doing, and we'll just go talk to them. And of course, nobody gets back to you. And now we're in the position of people want to market things to us. And, my LinkedIn messages is just a daily deluge of, people wanting to hook me up with the quota busting sales hunter and the, Silicon Valley equivalent engineers. And it's just, I don't even read it anymore. And I had a realization with Trevor. I was like, we thought we were doing such a great thing, and now we are these people. And so that's kind of been a learning for us, that it feels difficult to message and build trust because we haven't had as much opportunity to see people. And I'm curious, from your perspective, Is it getting harder for you all or easier? Or is this just kind of how the game's always been played?
Ooh, all right. So it is a really good question. I do believe that those platforms are the places you want to be. The reason for that is when you wake up in the morning and you open up your phone, what are you opening up? You're not opening up Edge or Chrome or Safari to go to somebody's website to go look them up, right? You're going to a news app, you're going to LinkedIn, you're going to TikTok or Twitter or wherever, right? And when you get there, the people and the interactions you want to have are happening in those places. Getting through the noise is very difficult, but what you'll actually find is when the reason you go back as a person to those places is there are people that are building rapport. They have content you want to read. They have the things you want to do. They're playing a very long game. They're playing the content demand generation game, which is I'm going to supply you with a ton of content, things that are valuable to you, things that cost me money to make, but don't cost you anything to consume. But at a certain point, your product will come up and your product will be able to be sold. There is a saying that we have on our side that content marketing is not product marketing, right? Product marketing is when you do a pamphlet that's at InfoSec and you hand it out to people. That's the product. That's the thing you're doing. But the really strong companies, a couple of them that you've probably heard of are like Salesforce has a great marketing content that they do. It's a ton of content. They give it away. Most of it is free. You don't even have to be signed up because they know if you get enough content from them, you grow trust. You build your brand, you build the things that are out there. And when you can build that, like you are a source of good information, you are building trust. And you need to remember that the month-long campaign you put into LinkedIn could have been at the wrong time for all your customers. It could have been not during budget time. It could have been your customers aren't ready yet. Your product is not mature enough yet within there. You need to be constantly improving that, the way with which you're talking to your customers. And you treat them like friends. You treat them like trusted people that you know are smart so that they know when they start working with you, you are all headed in the same path. They know what you're doing and you guys are working towards the same future. Those are the customers you want. So go inform them, go train them, go teach them how to be a good customer, right? With all the things. So when they show up, they're using the same lexicon, they're using the same like background, they're using all the same information that you need to help make them successful.
Casey, this has been great. Zoom is telling me I got 1:30 left before it's going to cut us off. I really appreciate you coming on and the insights. Before we jump, is there anything that you want to plug or shout out to?
I mean, if you need any cybersecurity services, I know a company. They're a good group. You could probably look them up. Sounds like miles per gallon when you look up MPG, but it's actually MindPoint Group. We'd love to have an opportunity to work with you. We've got a couple of fun products out there right now. Ansible Lockdown is a free baseline system that's available for anybody to set up baselines. And we also are working with a brand new SOC as a service that we've done within the federal government for the last 14 years. It's now available. So we're working hard to get it out in the world.
Awesome. Well, Casey, again, appreciate you being here. Great conversation. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Have a great day.
You too. We had Chris Barnett. What did you think? What was your reaction?
So I had a few thoughts. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. One of the things you talked about was the whole FUD phenomenon within cyber, and I think it's a pretty funny one because I'm not really one of those people. I do enjoy the whole worst case scenario type of thinking sometimes, especially as a prior auditor by trade. But in a lot of other senses, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, and so I was trying to think through with like what's the opposite of FUD, and to me, it's things more along the lines of like hope, optimism, belief. Like maybe Hob or something we can trademark. We'll see. But it seems
nobody asked for that. Nobody asked for that acronym.
Yeah, but see, there's too much FUD out there. That's why no one asked for it. But I think that's something we should be thinking more and more through, because in a lot of the ways that we look at ourselves internally at Salem Cyber, what we're trying to do is provide that optimism, provide that hope to folks who are dealing with high repetition, high fatigue, high burnout. and getting to believe that there is a different path and something else that they can be doing to enable themselves to have a better life. So I think we should spend a little more time thinking about that. That's my initial takeaway, kind of working backwards. And a couple other things that you guys were talking about there in that episode was, there's the giveaway thing. I think you and I specifically as people who've now been to a few conferences and a different experience in our life just don't always see the value in all those. And to me, there's just so much noise out there, especially when it's RSA. There's definitely the cool factor that really seems to resonate with a subset of the population. For example, the backpack that I got at that was a Yeti backpack over at RSA. Really cool, right? But how often will I actually use it? How associated will it be? To me, it really benefits the brand association in the moment, but I wonder, is that really the goal? And I think for us, especially, like, that's not really the goal that we're trying to go for. I think we try to optimize for more useful, a really good.
Well, I liked one of the things that he said around associating with like what your brand is, right? So like his example was like the fidget spinner with the bottle openers. And my mind immediately went to the thing that we do everywhere, which is go into like the whole like witchcraft element of Salem. And so I think, if that's going to be like part of our brand identity, like those would be kind of cool things that you can associate with us. I tend to agree with you though, like the Yeti cooler thing. Like Yeti coolers are cool, but like people want the cooler and they don't really care where it came from. They just don't want to have to pay, the price for it. So that's not really like our brand, but I think that there are things that are on our brand that can also be sticky. So I thought that was really good advice.
True. I think another thing to add on there too is to me, there's so many people who have that moment of they might win this and they're now associating a brand with something fun, which is obviously the brand association piece. And there's also what happens afterwards. A lot of time in marketing, you want more of those touch points. And so now that one person who won the branded cooler might have more touch points, but everyone else doesn't. So to me, some of the other examples that I've seen is like when people optimize for like usefulness. When I went to business school, Bain and Co, I think it's Bain and Co, which is one of the big three consulting firms that was recruiting there, gave every student like 2 water bottles or 1 water bottle. Obviously branded Bain, but like that was our first week of school during orientation. We all needed water bottles. Now we all used it. And guess what? People tended to use that for a long time afterwards. Their name was out there for everyone to see, for that person to remember. And it was like every day touch points. That was a pretty good job there. Obviously, it's hard to find your own version of that use case, but to me, that's where like the value really became high of, the giveaway then helped to reinforce the brand in subtle ways ongoing.
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing that I really pulled out of what Casey was saying is that people know their own risk. Like they know what's important to them and they're smarter than you think they are. And I loved his example of the average cyber attack costs like $60 billion. And it's like, well, not to me, it doesn't. Right. So there's that kind of like relevance and people know their own story. And I thought that was, again, like just kind of a really insightful pull out that we like to talk about trends and kind of what it means for the industry at large. But, the conversations that we have and you have on kind of like the micro level are more rooted in what's important to that organization, that situation, stuff like that. And obviously we're talking about it in terms of like, we run a company. I think that a lot of what he was saying has like broad applicability across different types of roles. I did a lot of internally focused marketing in a prior life. And it's kind of like the same thing, like security in a lot of ways is a service provider within a larger organization. And you have to be present and you kind of have to be always selling the story of what you're doing and kind of marketing the value that you're providing and being present through kind of like training and awareness and metrics and all that stuff. So I do think that probably didn't come through in the conversation. I should have stepped back and asked about that internal element, but a lot of what he mentioned was very applicable to directly to a security team, sans the buying everybody, your counterparts fidget spinners maybe, but
Right.
or maybe not. Maybe that's the thing that you do to get buy-in with security, buy everybody a beer opening fidget spinner.
Yeah. But it is funny, all the things you think of after a conversation, you wish you could say during a conversation. We have this weird opportunity to do it right now. to kind of bolt on there formally. But the piece you mentioned there goes actually back to the Steve conversation too. There's a similar trend where it becomes all about the person, right? About the individual. Yes, the context of the company, yes, the context of the industry, or other things like that makes sense and matter, but ultimately it's people. So how do you actually come back to the person and make that happen? The last takeaway I had was just a broader one, which is as a prior marketer, that it's just funny to me how different people talk about marketing and have different perceptions of it. In my view, like a well-run organization is one where every function starts with why in mind, and which is like really just a derivative of being customer centric, and that's true for too in the product-led strategy that we're following. And in that light, I think marketing just becomes the most highly visible function to the masses, which is why everyone's perception really skews towards that marketing being social, top of the funnel, all those types of things, which is all true, but it's also not complete. There's other pieces of the puzzle, and every industry has a different, you mentioned customer success, like there are other jobs to be done that marketers sometimes get attached to or do themselves. And it's just very interesting to understand and see different views of that one, and try to reconcile all of it and what really matters. But within this industry, I think we've seen the applications of marketing largely be focused on the customer focused ones, as in towards the market. But additionally, really product manager and that type of work too is largely a marketing function as well, as how do you then take and ingest and understand the user, the buyer, the customer, et cetera, and be able to bring that inwards and actually make the products relevant so that you stay very concentrated there. That's a marketing function in a lot of ways. But I would say that's a more upstream type of view, as in how do you then inform the product, then go deliver value versus just being downstream and pushing out to people.
Yeah. I mean, the retrospect here is you probably should have interviewed Casey, with the marketing background. Clearly you have a lot to say on this topic. I'm sitting over here going like, man, should I get my interview notepad back out and start asking Trevor questions about marketing? I guess I'll close on, I love having people like Casey on. One, he's just like a really interesting dude. And I think his kind of perspective is not one that you hear a lot, but he's part of the cyber industry and plays a very important role in how we think about cyber and what seems to be important and unimportant, because so much of the information that we get comes via some sort of marketing, whether it's for public good or otherwise. So I'm really glad that he sat down with us, and I thought it was a great conversation. Maybe we'll have him back at some point and you can chat with him about all of the more wonky elements of marketing.
I think that'd be great. I think at some point we'll figure out more of the how do these, because maybe we both are on. But more importantly, yes, Casey, thank you, Casey, for being on, by the way. Great to meet you informally. But to me, Casey himself and also the function he represents, I think, is vital for everyone in the cyber realm to really appreciate, because it is a function that's very necessary for helping support the ecosystem go from where it is today to where it's going to go next. It's all about learning. It's all about then executing on those learnings afterwards, and be able to take that and support the next generation of products, the next generation of services, so that we can advance collectively together faster. So I think it's really cool to hear about what he's been doing, and look forward to meeting him personally someday too.
Catch you next week. See you later.
Bye.